Chapter 11. Proverbs 11. Okay. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 11. We're going to do verses 1 through 13. You could make a really good message out of verses 1 through 20, but I think it would have just run too long. Let's go ahead and start with prayer. God, thank you so much for your doctrine of life, for Proverbs. Thank you for this very practical, very helpful book. I pray that you'd help us to apply these truths in our lives, not just to take them and sit on them, but I pray that you'd help us to take them, help us to do them, and teach them to others, to make disciples. Lord, I pray as we all have people that we influence, I pray that you would help us to be godly influences, pointing others down the path of wisdom. In Jesus' name, amen. So, I've really become convinced that a lot of being mature is just learning what's really important, what really matters, and what doesn't. When I was a kid, I thought a lot of things that mattered, a lot of things I really thought mattered, did not matter at all. I thought having the right friends, the popular friends, mattered. I thought wearing the right clothes and having the right kind of shoes mattered. I thought listening to the right kind of music mattered. And when I say right, I don't mean good necessarily. I mean popular, what all the kids in my school were doing. All this stuff that really, God gave me a lot of grace and good influences that helped me to kind of get out of this trap. But all this stuff just really competed for my time and attention. And at the end of the day, none of it really mattered. And I got off very easy. I saw a lot of my friends. And as I interact with young people now, I see a lot of young people that are just throwing away their lives, just giving over all the peace and joy that they could have, all the promise that they show, chasing physical thrills, chasing the right clothes, chasing the popular friends. These kids that died in this car accident, probably an example of that. One of them, apparently, the three were pretty bad news. Like pretty hardcore gangbangers. The other one though, and one of them did, and the one that did, I don't know this for sure. This is just secondhand, but the one that did was really not that bad and had just been hanging out with these kids for like a couple days. Had just gotten to know them, and got in a car with them, and died for it. We don't know what's important. We don't know what matters. And we subject ourselves to needless vanity and give up the best things in life chasing after stuff that won't satisfy us, that won't make us any better, any happier. And it's really tragic to see. And the tragic thing is that doesn't stop when we're young. When we're young, we're chasing after physical thrills, the right clothes, popular friends. When we get older, we're still chasing after physical thrills, but our souls have become callous, and those things that used to satisfy us don't satisfy us, so we have to go deeper and deeper and deeper down this maze of lust. And the things that used to be impressive to us, having the right clothes, they're not impressive anymore, so we have to buy more expensive things. And we just root ourselves into the world because we don't know what's important. And that's why, John, it's in your outline, that's why John warns us, for all that is in the world, the lusts of the flesh, the lusts of the eyes, the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world. And the world passes away, and the lust thereof, but he that does the will of God abides forever. What we're going to see in this passage tonight, here in Proverbs, is how we can live for what truly matters, how we can truly abide. That we must humbly learn to value what God values, to cling to those things that bring us closer to Him, and to speak very, very carefully. I was talking with someone on the phone who had just lost their wife. Actually had a really hard year, and he just lost his wife. And he was telling me about just this house full of stuff. Just a house packed full of stuff that they had bought over the years and just kind of hoarded and had spent a lot of money. And now he has to pack it all up, and probably 95% of it's going to Goodwill. It's really more stuff than any person could ever use in their life. And at the end of the day, for all of that time spent, for all of that shopping, for all of that time spent to earn the money, he just has nothing to show for it. Absolutely nothing. This disease of vanity is not just something for the young, it's something for the old too. But from Proverbs, we will see what really matters, what we really need to value. And that's what I want you to take home tonight. Not just so you can teach yourselves and be instructed, but so that you can teach people that look up to you. So let's open up the text. We'll be in Proverbs chapter 11, verses 1 through 2 to start with. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight. When pride comes, then comes shame, but with the lowly is wisdom. Whenever I read this, this comes up. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord. It comes up a few times. Whenever I read this, I think of a contractor I knew. He was a very godly person. He was one of these guys who was just like good at everything. But we would talk about things, and if he ever felt like things were kind of like out of balance, or we were kind of getting too far on one side or too far on another side, or something wasn't quite lined up right, he would say, well, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord. And that's not really what this text is about, but I'll always think of that guy. What's this text about? What does it mean when it says a false balance is an abomination to the Lord? Yeah, cheating. And so the picture is you have a scale, and you come to buy money or buy stuff from somebody that has a scale, and you pay him money for, say, 10 pounds of grain. They didn't use pounds, but we'll use pounds. You pay him money for 10 pounds of grain, and you give him the money for 10 pounds, and he measures it on the scale, and the scale says, yep, that's 10 pounds of grain. But actually, he's tampered with the scale. And it's really only 9 pounds or however many pounds. The point here is that these people that use false balances, they are cheating or lying to get a little bit more money. They're cheating or lying to get a little bit more money. What else are they getting, though? They're getting a little bit more money. They're also calling down upon themselves the wrath of God. And is that really worth it? Is that really worth it? The Bible repeatedly condemns dishonesty in business. And not just because it's bad for business, because eventually your customers find out and they go somewhere else. The Bible condemns dishonesty in business repeatedly and relates it directly back to God's own holy character. Not just is a false balance bad for business, a false balance is an abomination to the Lord. This is a personal thing with God. If you cheat people in the world of business, that is a personal offense to God. But if you do justice, if you do things right, even if no one else notices, even if everybody else thinks you're foolish for not cheating, because everybody cheats, how does God feel about it? He's delighted. If you cheat people in business, you are personally offending God. And if you are honest with people in business, then God is personally delighted in you. God notices. This is serious stuff that we're talking about. Somebody who has a false balance, somebody who's cheating in business, they think that money matters. They think that making a little more profit is what matters. But what really matters is how God feels about them, God's attitude towards them. So they're trading what doesn't matter, a little more profit, for what does matter, God's love, God's attitude towards them. A false balance is an abomination to the Lord. Leviticus, just balances, this is in your outline, just balances, just weight, a just ephah, a just hin shall you have. And why? Why shall you have justice? Not you might expect it to say, because that way you'll all get along and that way you won't be cheating each other, which is true. But you'll have fair weights and everybody will be doing the same thing. I am the Lord your God, which brought you out of the land of Egypt. That's the reason why. So we start this by saying, don't sacrifice what is eternal only to gain what is temporary. Value what God values. And as so often in Proverbs in verse 2, we see two paths, two ways that we can go. When pride comes, then comes shame. But with the lowly is wisdom. It's pretty straightforward, very practical, as we've learned to see in Proverbs. You see pride in a person, what can you expect to naturally follow down the line? Shame. You see humility in a person, what can you expect to naturally follow down the line? Wisdom. Now this pride, this is an interesting word. There's in the King James, there are a few different Hebrew terms that are translated pride. And this one in particular emphasizes that a person is sort of going their own way and doing their own thing. This is used to describe a person who doesn't listen to the voice of the priest. When the priest is teaching in the Old Testament and there's somebody who's not listening to that priest, this word for pride is used to describe that person. Or, interestingly, when a prophet is giving a false prophecy, if they're just making stuff up in defiance of God and prophesying it, that same word for pride is also used to describe what they're doing. So either way, this kind of pride means going your own way, doing your own thing in defiance of authority or good advice. That's what we're talking about. And that's why we read, this is in your outline, Proverbs 13 says, "Only by pride comes contention, but with the well-advised is wisdom." Contention comes because these people are going their own way, they're doing their own thing, they just won't listen. They just won't listen. What do you think of when you think of a lowly person? What does that mean? So pride leads to shame because these people are doing their own thing. They won't listen. They're just marching off to destruction, even though people that love them and know better are trying to call them back. But the lowly person is going on his way to honor. What does it mean?
A person that doesn't think too highly of himself.
Yeah. A person who doesn't think too highly of himself. This is the idea of humility. This word lowly shows up in Micah 6:8. The verse starts by asking the question, what has God required of you? And the answer to that question, Micah 6:8, He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justly, or to do justice, to love mercy, to walk humbly with thy God. And this term, walk humbly, is the same term lowly here in Proverbs. Very, very simply, the person on the path to honor is on the path to honor because they will receive instruction. They will be taught. They're not above learning. They're not above learning. Anyone who is too proud to learn will be put to shame. Anyone humble enough to be taught will be honored. And so here again we see a contrast, what matters and what doesn't matter. Have you ever refused to take advice or refused to listen because you were too proud? You didn't want to admit that you didn't know? I can think of a few times. And at the end of the day, you have to admit that you're wrong. And the thing is it doesn't get any easier. You know, if you're driving down the road and somebody's like, "I think you're going the wrong way," you're like, "No, this is right. This is right." I think we're driving to Tucson. No, this is right. I've been here before. 20 minutes down the road when you're sure you're like, "Yeah, I'm driving to Tucson." It doesn't get any easier. Just admit that you were wrong. Be humble enough to be taught. Be humble enough to be taught. It's not going to get any easier down the line. Not going to tell that story. And we continue to see, as we go through the passage, we continue to see what really matters. I'm not trying to rush. We'll see if we finish on time. If you guys have thoughts or questions, feel free to chime in. Picking up in verse 3. The integrity of the upright shall guide them, but the perverseness of transgressors shall destroy them. Riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way, but the wicked shall fall by his own wickedness. You see this picture again, two paths, two ways of going. The righteousness of the righteousness of the upright shall deliver them, but the transgressor shall be taken in their own naughtiness. When a wicked man dies, his expectation shall perish, and the hope of the unjust man perishes. The righteous is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked comes in his stead. A hypocrite with his mouth destroys his neighbor, but through knowledge the just shall be delivered. So this next 6 verses are repeating the same message in different ways. People that have integrity will be preserved. People that lack integrity will be destroyed. That's the simple message. And not just that they will be destroyed. We've seen this again and again in Proverbs. This is a self-destruction that they bring about on themselves. Look at verse 5. The righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way. The wicked shall fall, how? By his own wickedness. And verse 6, the righteousness of the upright shall deliver them. the transgressor shall be taken in their own naughtiness. And taken here that's a term for like being trapped like an animal. Like your sin ends up trapping you. Your sin ends up trapping you. Have you ever experienced that before? Where you're trapped in your own lusts, your own sin, and you can't get out? That's what a lot of pride is. And then look down just a little bit. Verse 8 is almost funny. The righteous is delivered out of trouble, and the wicked comes in his stead. And so the picture here is the righteous person is on a path that's leading to trouble. And because the righteous person, they're walking down this road and there's a pit in front of them. Because the righteous person is willing to listen, they receive instruction and you're like, I'm not going to walk right into that pit. I think I'm going to go around it. But the wicked person comes along and he walks into that pit instead of the righteous person. So not only when we're wicked and foolish, not only do we call down judgment upon ourselves from God, not only do we destroy ourselves with our own behavior and bad choices, but we actually earn for ourselves the destruction that would have gone to righteous people. The danger that they were in, we walk into that instead when we're wicked. So don't be wicked. Righteousness delivers from trouble, and that same trouble is saved up for the wicked. So how often are we tempted to give up our integrity? How often are we tempted to lie to make things a little easier? How often are we tempted to cheat to earn a little bit of money? Or maybe not even a little thing, maybe a big thing, maybe a really big thing. Maybe like you get a check from the IRS for like $1,000 and you're pretty sure that it's a mistake. What do? Do you call them about it? You just sit on it for a while? Sometimes it could be a little thing, sometimes it could be a big thing. But in every circumstance, we are being tempted to give up our integrity for something else. We're being tempted to give up what matters, our uprightness, our integrity before God, for what doesn't matter. Money, possessions, popularity. And if we choose integrity, then we will be preserved, as Proverbs promises us. That doesn't mean it will be easy. That doesn't mean that we'll always be better off than our neighbors. But if we choose integrity, then God will preserve us. Cling to God by holding on to your integrity. No one but God can save you. And especially your money cannot save you. Proverbs points this out explicitly in verse 4. Riches profit not in the day of wrath, but righteousness delivers from death. Riches do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. This point is critical because people in the time of the Bible, people all throughout human history, people today think that they can buy their way out of bad decisions. They think, oh, okay, I can do this. I have a lot of money saved up. It's not really going to be that bad. I can buy my way out of this problem. And throw some money at this and it'll go away. There's basically one time in the whole New Testament where someone gets called a fool. It happens once in the New Testament. It's mentioned, being called a fool is mentioned a couple of times, but there's one time in the New Testament where someone is called a fool. And he's called a fool by God himself. A certain man came to Jesus and said, Lord, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. Tell my brother to be fair about things. And Jesus said, look, who's made me a judge of material things? I'm paraphrasing, of course. This is in Luke chapter 12. Who made me a judge of material things over you? Beware. Take heed about your life, because your life does not consist in the abundance of your possessions. And Jesus tells a parable about a certain man, a very, very rich man. So rich, his fields are producing so much fruit that eventually his barns will not hold the produce anymore. And he says to himself, what am I going to do with all my stuff? I've got all this stuff. And you might think, well, he could give something to the poor. He could donate something to the temple. He could do something with it that would matter. But no, he says, I know what I'll do. I'm going to tear down my barns, and I'm going to build bigger barns to hold all my stuff. And so he does it, and he says to himself, you have much goods laid up for many years. Take your ease, eat, drink, be merry. We've got this thing taken care of. You are good. And that man died that very night. And God said to him, you fool, tonight your very soul will be required of you. The only time in the New Testament someone is called a fool. And he's being called a fool by God because he trusted in his money to take care of him. He trusted in his stuff. That is such a temptation. Cling to God, hold on to your integrity, and especially remember your money cannot save you. Your money will not save you. So when we're learning to value what really matters, we have to teach ourselves to value what God values, especially hold on to our integrity. And we also have to teach ourselves how to do what God wants us to do. You know, if you read Proverbs through, if all you knew about humankind, if all you knew about us as a people were Proverbs, you would read Proverbs and you would think, wow, these, some people are probably kind of strong, and some people have certain abilities, it seems like, and there's the fools and the wise. But these humans, they have like superpower words. Like everything important that they do with their words. Proverbs presents a picture of us where what we say, our words, are easily, far and away, the most powerful thing about us. And that's what we see again here. So we're going to end tonight, chapter 11, verses 10 through 13. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices. When the wicked perish, there is shouting. By the blessings of the upright, the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. He that is void of wisdom despises his neighbor, but a man of understanding holds his peace. A talebearer reveals secrets, but he that is that of a faithful spirit conceals the matter. Okay. We've seen again and again in Proverbs, it's being taught that our decisions are not just about us. What we do impacts other people. And that's really what verse 10 is about again. When it goes well with the righteous, the city rejoices. When the wicked perish, what happens?
Everybody gets happy.
Yeah, that's the term. For the picture here is shouting with joy. People celebrate the death of the wicked. That was certainly not what happened with Durrell and Karen. I mean, if you were at the funeral on Tuesday, this auditorium was packed with lives that Durrell and Karen had touched. And we could say, rightfully so maybe, that their kids haven't necessarily followed their example. But Durrell and Karen showed in many ways God's love. And it showed in the funeral. Nobody was shouting for joy at the funeral. Even though Durrell and Karen are in heaven, we know that with certainty. Nobody was shouting for joy at their death. So a very practical advice to take home tonight. If you don't want people to celebrate your death, don't be wicked. If you don't want people to be shouting for joy at your funeral, don't be wicked. You can take that one home. So why? The question is why? Why are people so thrilled about the death of the wicked? And why are people so thrilled about the prosperity of the righteous? What's going on here? Well, that's what we see in the rest of the passage. Verse 11. By the blessings of the upright, the city is exalted, but it is overthrown by the mouth of the wicked. What a powerful picture of our words. That our city, our very community, is lifted up by the blessings of the upright. That when we have integrity and we use our mouth rightly, everybody around us is lifted up. But what happens when we're wicked? What happens when we use our mouth wrongly? But it is overthrown. It is overthrown. This picture of cataclysm and destruction and everything going wrong, not because of what people are doing, but because of what people are saying. How we use our words matters. The most powerful thing that God has given you is probably your mouth. How you use your words matters. And I want you to look as we finish tonight. We're thinking about what really matters in life and what doesn't. How the righteous use their words in this passage and how the wicked use their words. So let's see what the righteous do. Let's go through and look just for what it says about the righteous. So verse 11, The blessings of the upright, the city is exalted. So the upright they bless, and the city is exalted. He that is void of wisdom despises his neighbor, but a man of understanding does what? Hold his peace. See, the picture doesn't talk, actually. And despise here, this is, if you do a word study on despise in your Bible, a lot of times it comes up when people are making fun of other people, like when a city is destroyed and people are being carried off into slavery, a wicked person will laugh at them and point and make jokes about it, and it's said that they despise them. That's kind of the picture. What's being described here is just unnecessary ugliness with your words. Unnecessary ugliness with your words. But a man of understanding holds his peace. So the righteous bless, and they hold their peace. In verse 13, a talebearer reveals secrets, but he that is faithful does what? Conceals a matter. And this is not like he's being shady about it or he's being dishonest, but in contrast with a talebearer who goes around like telling gossip, a faithful person doesn't tell secrets that have been entrusted to them. That's what's being described here. Now let's look at the wicked. How the wicked use their mouth. The wicked overthrow the city in verse 11. And verse 12, the void of wisdom